Please play me a song. That looks like hot garbage. What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the Schmodified channel. My name's Saxon. This is Nico. Today we are going to finally start the twin turbo kit on our dollar store Lamborghini Gallardo. For those of you that are new to the channel, we just finished cleaning up this engine, putting in a new clutch. We took it to Lamborghini dealership. It runs and drives better. That's a word. For $3,500, we got this. We got all these goodies. The twin turbo kit came with all of the pipes, all of the coolant lines. It came with a Pro EFI ECU standalone, and it came with this lovely wiring harness that we're gonna have to reverse engineer. They were kind enough to actually label all of the wires, so hypothetically this shouldn't be that bad to put in. Came with some water to air intercoolers. There's a water tank that sits in the front of the car, and there's one in the back where you can put some ice. Looks like they took the stock fuel rail and then welded some bungs to either end, AN8, which is kind of, it's convenient. It came with all new 550cc injectors, just gas sprinklers for our engine. We need to pull out all of the old stuff, so we're going to remove all these little hoses and harnesses, and then we can pop a new one in. These are our stock fuel rails here. This is what they took and modified. And what they did was they removed, I'm assuming this is a pressure regulator here. And what we're gonna have to do is add an inline one to the new fuel rails that we have. And it's actually also a flute. Please play me a song.
It's better to skin one.
We're gonna put these new injectors on our ghetto fuel rail, and then we're gonna put them back in. Now the fuel rail is fully assembled, we could take it and slap it back in the car.
Slap it.
Slap it the best, man. Now we are going to have to make a custom AAN feed line here, and we're gonna have to also replace this return line adapter, because on each end of the fuel rails, you can see we have two 8 AN fuel lines. What we need to do is we need to add a regulator on either side too, and that way we can adjust what our fuel pressure is, because whatever tune is on this ECU, hopefully we can make it align exactly with what it needs to be. Slap this bad boy on. Alright, just watch that firing ring from that. Check your, so we can change rails. Look, look, look. Looky, 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 look, look, look. Wow. Wow. The blankets kind of make it look like a homeless person was there, but hey, man, if stuff doesn't melt, I'm all for it. That fits up quite nice, and we left everything loose a little bit so we can still adjust where everything needs to mount. I believe there's still more bracing we have to do, but yeah, squint your eyes, guys. That's what she's gonna look like. Felix was able to find out where this thing probably went. Notice how that little pipe is damaged there? And they made this fancy little doohickey that the exhaust neatly sets on. That way it doesn't rub against the transmission. Look at that. Look at that clearance. That's cool. Good job, whoever made this before. Hey guys, little public service announcement. Hot air is better for your engine. No, I'm kidding. This, I don't really understand why you would pipe in air this way, because that's where your exhaust is here, your headers. A lot of heat is coming up this way. So for them to put the intakes like that makes very little sense to me. So as we're doing a little bit of reverse engineering, everything's kind of making sense. Felix is doing a good job of finding out where things mount up to. It looks like each intercooler mounts to the right side and fits behind that wheel well for each, right? And that's kind of cool. So that's a weird thing. The negative side of doing that is that means that our cold air, after it goes to the intercooler, has to go through this line right here, which means that it's going right above some exhaust. So that's going to be really hot. I don't know how we're going to deal with that, but either way, then it's going to come through the exhaust and then into our intakes. Then we're also playing around with our oil drains for each turbo. Found this weird looking little homemade block that they had, and after playing around with it a little bit, it looks like both turbos are going to drain into it, and then it came with a nice another AN line here that drains from the very bottom of it into somewhere on the engine. So we got to find out where that goes. Before we can put this rear bumper frame rail back on, we definitely need to see if we can fix how severely bent it is. Look at that. Yeah, that bar is supposed to look like that. Typically, I wouldn't try to repair bent aluminum this bad, but we're gonna give it a shot. The trick, map gas. The hardest part about this is the fact that on the inside of this, it's also severely bent. And we're not really able to heat up this bar here that well. So I'm gonna try to start by heating up from the inside, and then once I have this nice and hot, I'm then gonna heat around each piece, and then we're gonna take some hammers and beat on it until it's more flat. It makes awful noise. It's like an instrument. Play me like one of your French girls. We are going to try option number 2. So as we're heating this up here, we're going to try to clamp it to the actual press, and then once everything's nice and hot, we're going to press down on it, hopefully straightening everything out. Look at this engineering feat.
Look at it. Ready?
Okay.
Bam! Look, it's straightening out right there.
It's cracking also.
It's cracking?
Yeah, we're gonna have to weld that spot. That's fine. I'm not proud of this, but it's working. Look, it looks a lot more square.
It ain't much, but it's honest work.
It's honest work. After about half an hour of clamping it from different directions, now it finally looks pretty straight. Everything looks pretty awesome. I'm gonna cool this down, take it off, and fit it to the car, make sure everything lines up a lot better. There is the finished metal work. It looks pretty darn straight. It's not 100% perfect. And this way is a lot more straight as well. Welded, cleaned up our welds, cleaned up all our dings. Now we're gonna throw some VHT on it so that way it doesn't look horrendous when you see it on the car. Now that our frame is relatively straight and we can put it back on the car, before we even bother doing any of that, we need to fix one of our intercoolers. These intercoolers mount up to the frame over here, but this guy here has been broken off on this intercooler. So this is not going to be stable enough to mount to the actual engine. I went on old Amazon and bought myself a piece of 1/8 inch aluminum. We're going to measure this out. We're going to cut one out of this 12 by 12 piece of aluminum, and then we're going to weld it back on this guy. Everybody's happy. We took some painter's tape to trace out what we're going to be replicating. I'm going to peel the tape off. Now we transferred it over to this aluminum. We're going to cut it out with a razor blade and peel this off. And there we have it. So now, hey look, it matches it beautifully. A welder on right there. We've tacked it on poorly. I'm gonna go measure this versus that to make sure that we're aligning this exactly where it needs to go, because when we put it on the car, if this is way off, it may not be able to bolt to it. That looks like hot garbage. All right, it's a fairly terrible weld, but you know what? It's going to absolutely hold. Now we can go ahead and put it back on the car. Now that we have our intercooler properly welded back up, we can take this frame that we unbended for the most part and slap it back on the car and make sure everything lines up perfectly. Once we get this hot side mounted up here, the next step is we need to get our wastegates mounted up properly. Luckily, everything is a little flexible, right? This is on a flex joint, so we can line everything up properly. And then we're going to use a very similar style clamp. Now that we have this rear bumper brace on, we can now slap our intercoolers behind each rear wheel. The reason we need to put this on first is because it mounts to this bar in a couple places. So it bolts up there, and then we have this floating piece here. My guess would be that I'm missing some kind of bracket that they custom made. So we might have to drill into this, put a piece of aluminum to hold this up as well. Pretty interesting fitment if you ask me, but hey, whatever. As long as the rear wheel and the wheel liner can fit without hitting anything. The ultimate trick to putting on used car parts is to find witness marks where stuff was rubbing against things. Clearly this frame was hitting that piece right there. So that allowed me to figure out where this needs to mount. Ta-da. And then that lets me mark the very bottom of it where we need to drill a hole in order to put a bolt through both of these pieces. And then we can finally drill our hole for our custom made little bracket at the end. And then both of our intercoolers are fully mounted up. Now that it's mounted to the rear bumper, we can come over here, and I traced out where the center of that bolt is. And I swear I can draw a straight line. So we know that we need to drill right there. Send her home. That bad boy ain't going nowhere.
Wow, intercool me, daddy.
That's a wrap for this video.
I'm going to take a quick second out to thank our sponsor, Segola. I've been spraying exclusively with Segola guns for the past 2 years, and I've absolutely loved it. They are miles ahead of the competition. I love you, Segola. I love your mother.
In the next video, we're gonna make all of our new fuel lines and put in new fuel pumps so that this baby has enough fuel to make some decent power. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, hit that follow button, and tell your mother that I love her.